ghoul friends, it's me, Adrian, or Ayden. Either way, I am still your host, and you are still listening to Susto, the podcast of ooky, spooky, scary stories centered on paranormal folklore from Latin American and Hispanic cultures. Welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. And if this is your first time, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're glad that you're finally here. All right, ghoul friends. So last episode, we wrapped up the curanderismo series. I know that I think maybe one more suggestion, but I'm going to save that for later. But still, if you have any suggestions or leads on curanderes, please send those in. If you happen to know of anybody, whether it's a personal connection or someone that you heard of, I would always, of course, love to hear from you all. Speaking of hearing from you all, I'm just going to get it out of the way. If you have your own scary story that you would like me to share on a Letters from the Beyond episode, you can do so by, you already know how, sending me an email, hitting the contact button on the website, sustopodcast.com, sending me a DM on any social media platform that's at sustopodcast, or by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or leaving a comment on Spotify. Also, as you may have heard me say in that last episode, you can also send in a voice message. So if you visit the website, again, sustopodcast.com, on the right-hand side of the page, whether you're on mobile or on a computer, there's going to be kind of a little tab sticking out on the right side that says send me a voicemail or something like that. Hit that button and you can send in your own recording if you want to tell your own story using your own voice. As a reminder, it doesn't have to be a scary story. If you have a photo, video, audio recording, anything that you think is spooky that I should share either on the show or on social media, send it in those ways as well. Y'all, I don't know if you saw, I just remembered because I was talking about the social media pages, but I went a little viral on TikTok recently. I uploaded a video of me and my cat Margaret, and I did the A Quiet Place challenge, if you will, where I said, this is my cat Margaret, I'm gonna see if it would survive in a quiet place. And I ran with her, and immediately, even before we started the test, she failed. But that video now, it has over like 8 million views, which is wild to me. Also, very ironic. All this work that I try to put into making those videos on TikTok or like coming up with ideas to do things on there about to the show itself and about the stories, and the thing that goes viral is my cat. She goes viral before me. But you know what? She has star quality. Apparently, she's just got it. She's got the X factor. So she's earning her rent in our house now. Finally, I did tell her to get a job. So now she's an influencer, I guess. But if you haven't seen that, go check it out. It's pretty cute. She's adorable. And now my TikTok page is basically a Margaret page. So if you haven't seen her before, go check her out there. You all, we are approaching the Burr months, as they're calling them. So September, October, November, December. My favorite months because it gets cooler and because it's spooky season. And with that, of course, Susto will start making appearances. I will claw my way out of the grave and into the living world. I have a few things lined up, but the one that I've started promoting already is the Night Owl Spirit Fest. So one of my favorite podcasts, the Night Owl podcast, they are putting on for the very first time the inaugural Spirit Fest. And we are going to have an amazing lineup of panels. There are going to be some super cool vendors there. It's just going to be a really fun experience. Again, that's going to be here in Austin on October 12th. I've started posting about that on social media, so if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's going to be so much fun. But again, follow social media for any and all updates. As spooky season approaches, that's when people get really interested in bringing me out from the other side. So yeah, just keep up on there and you'll see where I'm going to be, and I will keep mentioning it. Don't worry. It looks like I don't have any other updates for this show. I'm excited for this episode in particular because it feels like a return to the Susto formula. We've been kind of exploring different formats of episodes with the curanderismo series that was more about like history and culture. But this one, of course, is going to reflect on that, but it's also just a good scary story. I'm so excited to tell you. And additionally, this is an original story. I've said this before. I'm not a writer. I don't credit myself as a writer, but this story, I wrote it from scratch just because I was so inspired when I was reading all of the sources, and it just made me excited. And I just kind of imagined it like a movie. So you all feel free to leave me feedback. I would love to call myself a writer more often, but yeah, this is an original story. So I hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think in the comments, in the reviews, in the DMs, anything. Just let me know what you think. If you have any feedback, I welcome it. Constructive criticism, please don't just bully me. I will cry. But without further ado, today I'm telling you the story of La Taconuda.
Hey, what's up? I'm Charlie.
And I'm Tyler.
And we are Believing the Bizarre,
a paranormal podcast that dives into the unknown and the unusual every Tuesday.
We discuss hauntings, cryptids, aliens, UFO encounters, conspiracies, and more.
And we break down whether or not we find them believable.
All right, listen, if you're not paying for electricity, you're not paying for dinner.
Saw a terrifying looking face pressed to the window with gaping eyes.
Almost reached it when the laughter stopped suddenly, and a sound behind me made me turn around.
Sorry, I was gonna do it, but then I had SpaceX.
So we got you covered, whether you like horror or laughs, or both. We actually really hope it's both.
With over 3 million downloads, you'll be joining a bizarro community that we promise is more than just Mothman and our parents.
We even take creepy stories from our listeners and turn them into episodes.
Check out Believing the Bizarre on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Believing the Bizarre, a podcast as bizarre as you are.
Alma was on cloud 9. It was her and her boyfriend's anniversary, and she knew it was the night he would finally ask her to be his wife, or so she hoped. Their plan was to meet at the final stop of his shift as a bus driver. From there, they would drive to the station, get in his car, and enjoy the evening that would mark the beginning of their new life. She slipped on her nicest dress, styled her long, silky black hair, did her makeup the way she knew he liked it, and slid on her favorite pair of heels. The bus stop was a short walk from her home, but Alma's excitement made her feel as if she couldn't get there fast enough. The whole way there, she imagined how he would ask her, what food they would serve at their wedding, how handsome he'd look in a tuxedo. When Alma finally arrived at the bus stop, she was left speechless. Her lover adorned his bus with string lights. Their song played softly from its intercom. He stood at the door of his 5-ton steed, dressed in his own best, holding a bouquet. Alma was right. She knew in her heart, in her soul, that he was going to propose. Her smile stretched across her face, illuminated by the glow of the lights, as he began to profess his eternal love to her. He was nervous, like she knew he'd be, but at last he reached the end of his speech. Alma, he said, what I'm trying to tell you, to ask you, is will you... A piercing screech tore through their song, interrupting his final words. The lights grew brighter, blinding them before they could realize what it was. A bright yellow car blazed through the red light at the intersection. It missed one car, then the next, before slamming into the nose of the bus, pinning Alma's would-be fiancé in its doorway where he stood only seconds before. Alma's lover was dead on impact. When first responders arrived, she was frozen in place, eyes wide, shaking and quietly crying. She's in shock, someone shouted. As medics attended to her, trying to get her to respond, she overheard an officer telling another, the taxi driver's gonna make it. He said he was distracted by the girl, missed the red light and swerved through traffic. Although she was physically untouched, Alma felt a pain so deep and agonizing, an excruciating sensation that never left her. Days later, Alma was found unresponsive in her home, still in her dress, her makeup she knew he liked, and her favorite heels. In the following weeks after her and her lover's passing, taxi drivers throughout the city reported strange events. Footsteps in empty streets, a serial fare evader who seemingly vanished into thin air, leaving only traces of perfume behind. Strangest of all, and what made drivers end their shifts before sundown, was the deaths of 4 taxi drivers. But these stories didn't stop Oscar. Recently kicked out of his girlfriend's apartment when she discovered his infidelity, he needed quick money for his own place. He knew there was a driver shortage and took advantage of the situation. It wasn't long before Oscar fell witness to a bizarre, late-night incident. In the dead of night, he pulled over on a quiet, stone-paved road to take his break. Oscar rolled down his window to enjoy the cool breeze. He hummed along to the song playing faintly on his radio. He was tired after working days on end and late into the nights. He was nodding off when he woke, startled by the sound of footsteps right by his car. But the road stood empty still. He could hear what sounded like high heels on stone in the distance. Brushing it off, he started his car, and as the headlights came on, he jumped again. Standing in front of his car was a woman. "Hey, beautiful, need a ride?" he asked with a chuckle. Silently, she walked over to the back passenger side of his car. The vehicle's door opened and shut. "Where we're going tonight, gorgeous?" he asked. In a low, barely audible voice, she gave him an address. He plugged it into his GPS, started the fare meter, and they left. Oscar tried to make small talk, but was met with silence. His questions became more and more personal. "What do you do for fun? Do you have a boyfriend? Ever been to this cafe here? I could take you sometime. I'll take your number when I drop you off. What are you doing out so late looking so nice, huh?" Eventually, Oscar became enraged when she would not answer. "You know," he said, "you could stand to be more polite." His GPS interrupted him with an alert.
You are approaching your destination.
More frustrated now, he turned to continue. "When a man is being nice to a pretty lady like you should show some gratitude." As he turned to face the beautiful stranger, he exclaimed, "You're not even that pretty." The glint of her blade caught his eye, and before he could continue, she plunged it deep into his neck. His car continued to roll slowly down the road. He began to lose consciousness when he noticed the song playing was the same one as when he pulled over earlier, a song about lost love. The music began to loop and glitch in a way he'd never heard before. In his final moments, without a sound, the woman vanished and the smell of perfume filled his car. He could taste blood pooling in his mouth. He could see a hazy glow from above, the light from a bus stop. Welcome back, Wolf Friends. Okay, again, that was an original story. I hope you enjoyed it. It was very easy to write this story because there were good like bits and pieces about this story that already existed, and I kind of just took those things and instead of piecing those things together, I the meme of that lady with the numbers floating around her face, doing the math. That's me right now trying to explain what writing is to you. But anyway, okay, so to get into it, from what I saw, the sources that I used really heavily is this story is based out of Honduras, more specifically in I think it's the capital of Honduras. Yes, the capital, Tegucigalpa. And actually, when I went to Honduras, I was very close to the capital, to Tegucigalpa. I am sad that I didn't hear this story. I don't know if I was doing Susto then yet. Maybe that was during my hiatus. I'm not sure. But I wish I had thought to ask about scary stories, but also we were with a bunch of little kids, and so I'm sure that they didn't want to scare them. But anyway, so this story is based again out of Tegucigalpa, Honduras, and so we're going to go through the sources here. Again, the direct links to the sources are in the Susto Google Doc. So the first one that I have here is from Revista Chilena de Literatura, and it's an academic article, it looks like, from Universidad de Jaén, España, and this article is titled "The Weeping Woman, the Siwanaba and Other Female Ghosts, Typological Configuration and Legendary Motifs." Okay, and there's just a snippet. This is of course, an entire article about all of these types of, as I like to call them here on Susto, cryptid femmes, but they bring up the specific instance of the Taconuda. In English, I think it's just or woman wearing heels. Yeah, or high heels. But in this instance, it's la Taconuda as a woman or a person wearing high heels. This snippet of this article says, on the other hand, there are stories that only describe the appearance of ghostly women on the road, without adding the reason for the driver who put her in the car. Quote, "A large light crossed in front of our car, and out of nowhere, when we turned to look, we saw a woman dressed in white. She was illuminated and looked half blurry because of so much light shining on her," to which is added in this Honduran exhibition of the explanation of the reason for her death. Quote, "A gas station worker told us that this ghost is of a woman who died in a car accident. He told us that she was with her family in a car and they flipped. The man says that only she died. These types of apparitions are characterized as malignant beings in many of the stories, as is this exhibition also from Honduras. Quote, "When someone is driving alone downhill, that is when the driver turns to look in the rearview mirror, and it is at this very moment that the woman appears. That ghost has caused all kinds of accidents here. Drivers lose control and crash." There's another part here, but before that, this reminds me of stories like, is it the Donkey Lady Bridge, I think? I remember growing up, if anyone anyone listening is from the Rio Grande Valley, there's this stretch of road, I think it's 107 in Edinburgh, like on the edge of, or the outskirts of Edinburgh. And they would say that there was a Y, I think it was a convenience store called the Y out there. But they said that if you drove past that late at night, that you would see a beautiful woman on the side of the road, and that you were supposed to offer her a ride. But before you got to the destination, or when you like looked back, she wouldn't be there anymore. She would vanish. And they said that like a different version of that same story was that if you saw her and you did not offer her a ride, that when you looked in the rearview mirror, she would be in your back seat and she would have the face of a horse. I think I may have mentioned this in the episode of the Donkey Lady Bridge, because this idea of a horse or a equine kind of shaped face is something I think that we see repeated in these types of stories. Okay, but this continues. The same context serves as a framework for some legends about the Taconuda told in Honduras. According to the testimony of informant from Tegucigalpa, she is the girlfriend of a bus driver who died when his vehicle collided with a taxi. Since then, her ghost has wandered the streets looking for taxi drivers to take revenge on. When the taxi drivers pick her up, they look at her, and when they turn around to collect their fare, she is no longer there, and she doesn't make any noise or anything to get out. They say that when they turn around to look back, she is already there with a knife and stabs them and kills them. They say that she has already killed about 4 taxi drivers. That was a story from someone, and it continues. In other Honduran stories, she is described as the ghost of a woman with high heels who was murdered in the streets by an individual who tried to abuse her. As in certain versions of La Llorona, this figure is also associated with the motif of the contradictory perception of the feeling of danger and the proximity of sound. So I tried to add that in the story because, again, this is, I think, what we see with like El Silbón. I think some people have said this about lechuzas or other kind of bird cryptids, is that the closer their sound is. So with El Silbón, it's the whistling. With La Llorona, it's her weeping. With La Taconuda, it's her high heels. The closer that you hear her, the further away that she is. Versus the further away that she is, that means that she's actually nearby. So this just kind of echoes that. It says, they also say that when footsteps are heard nearby, it means that La Taconuda is already far away. But if the footsteps were heard far away, it means that she is approaching. So again, I don't know what it is with this. I think maybe it's just a trope that people use in these kinds of stories, is to add this element of confusion or disorientation. It makes it more dangerous because you think you're safe because you would think, okay, it's far away. I can hear it's far away, but that's not the truth. That's when you let your guard down, you're more vulnerable, and that's when they get you, right? So yeah, just these kinds of, I think, interesting connections between these stories of women on the side of the road, like hitchhikers or whatever. But this one was interesting because there's a distinct story or a distinct cause for the reason that she haunts, right? Is that, and I guess technically there's 2, is some people say that she witnessed her boyfriend, her lover, being killed by a taxi driver. I think some people also go so far as to say that the reason that the taxi driver, and that's why I included it in the story, the reason that the taxi driver collided with the bus is because he was distracted, because he was looking at her. And so she, I guess eventually either she dies of a broken heart, maybe she dies by suicide. It's not clear how she passes, but her spirit is still so unsettled and so upset that she takes it upon her to seek revenge on any taxi drivers. Which, sorry taxi drivers, but if you're out there, be careful. And maybe, that it falls into that realm of the types of stories that are meant to discipline us or to keep us in check. So I guess then you could say that the takeaway from this story is don't be a distracted driver, because if you're distracted and you're looking around, you're going to see La Taconuda and she's going to get you. And also, plot twist, maybe this one is for the women and for the femmes, and the story now is don't objectify women, don't be staring at women like pieces of meat and objects in the street, because if you do, she's going to get in your car and she's going to get you. And then in some versions, she just simply disappears when they make it to the destination. So again, if you're not distracted, if you're keeping your eyes forward on the road, then you're fine. So the next source that I have here is it's a blog called Te Gusta Honduras, and this is again about taxi drivers, but it also includes story of someone just doing chores late at night. So again, it could be the whole thing of don't be out late at night. This one's kind of a short one. It says, a neighbor from the Kennedy neighborhood tells of an encounter with a woman in high heels. It happened one night as he was used to staying out late at night in the blocks. He started smoking a cigarette and it was almost 3 a.m. The atmosphere was calm. Suddenly, the wind started to get colder than usual, and then he heard footsteps approaching, but with the sound of heels. He saw the silhouette of a woman coming. He didn't pay attention to it. What surprised him later was that the woman wasn't moving. All he could hear was the clicking of heels. Immediately, he felt a chill run through his entire body, and without thinking twice, he ran out, and in the distance, he continued to hear the footsteps of heels as if they were following him. He entered his house, and from that day on, he tried not to wander around late at night. So again, behave, stay home, don't be out late at night, because the La Taconuda will get you. Another event that occurred in the same neighborhood in the blocks of Zone 2 tells us that a young man was doing tasks in the early morning hours, approximately at 1:40 a.m., and that in front of the house he suddenly heard the sound of heels. He thought it was a neighbor who worked late and had just arrived home, but the strange thing was that the sound was short, only a few footsteps, and he did not hear any door open. Later on, another day of the same week, he had to repeat the same thing, staying doing chores in the living room of the house, and almost at the same time, he heard the same footsteps of heels again. And immediately out of curiosity, he positioned himself to observe through a hole in the door, while the sound of the footsteps came closer, hoping to be able to see who it was when they passed exactly in front of the house. But such was his astonishment when he heard the sound so close as if someone was walking in heels in front of the door and did not see anyone, not even a silhouette. And to top it off, the blocks looked clear, and the young man felt an intense fear that he couldn't finish his task and instead went to his room to try and calm down. Could it be an evil ghost, a soul in pain, or simply a woman? This page was originally in Spanish. It was translated into English, so sorry if it sounded a little clunky. That's just Google Translate. And then again, there's another short version of the taxi driver kind of version. This one happens in another city in Honduras called Danli, and it says this event happens in the city of the hills, Danli. It is the taxi drivers who narrate this mysterious event. They say that late at night, they're working on the streets looking for passengers, and they see a beautiful young woman wearing high heels stop them, and they take her. She starts talking to the driver and says that she's coming from a party, and it's late, and she's going home. The taxi driver is driving according to the address that the young woman indicated, and suddenly he no longer sees her in the back seat, but instead she is walking on the sidewalk without realizing when she got out. There are several taxi drivers who have gone through the same experience without knowing the explanation for it. One of them supposes that it could be the soul in pain of a young woman who is perhaps assaulted and murdered when leaving a party. But the strange thing is that nobody knows her despite the descriptions and the detail that she is wearing very high heels. And I'm reading this verbatim. It says, many taxi drivers no longer do the night route very often for fear of this occurrence since one of their colleagues went, quote, crazy because of it. One of the drivers says that he pays close attention to who stops him, and if he sees that it is a beautiful young woman in a party dress, and especially with high heels, he does not let her get in and speeds up. So he's just like, nope, sorry. Okay, so sorry to all the pretty ghouls in high heels like me. We just apparently can't get a ride. I think what I really like about this story is that when you strip kind of everything away from it, it's saying, leave women alone. Leave women alone when they're walking at night. Unfortunately, it's like, well, no, they should still get a ride. They need a ride home maybe. But yeah, I don't know. It adds this element of danger to approaching women late at night on the street, which I am one of those people where if I'm walking, I will cross the road. I will not make you have to walk by me or near me, especially if it's in the evening. And I had never even heard the story of the Taconuda before putting this episode together. The next source that I have here is, this looks like it is a thesis by two folks. One of them was referenced in the first source that I had here. It's by Martinez Reyes and Fernanda Maria, and this is an oral narrative in Honduras, new explorations at the beginning of the 21st century. So this thing is kind of spread out across different places, but if you search that, you should be able to find it. There's a PDF that I found of it, and I have here the specific pages that I wanted to reference. Okay, so in this thesis, it looks like they collected various anecdotes from people about all these different kinds of folklore and stories from people in Honduras. But this one, a couple sections I wanted to reference is about La Taconuda. So the one here is collected by this woman named Stephanie Ferrufino, who is from the St. Lawrence Valley in Honduras. And it's just her telling basically the same story about the taxi drivers. It says that taxi drivers don't pick women up at night because there's a woman called La Taconuda. She was the girlfriend of a bus driver, and that the bus and the taxi crashed and that he died. This one, actually, there's a slight difference in it. It says that she was also in the bus and that they crashed all together and that she died. And so now she, haunts the streets, but she was said to have long hair, that she was attractive, that she wore high heels, and that's why they call her La Taconuda. And that in Tegucigalpa, they say that she comes out in Villanueva, that when taxi drivers pick her up, they look at her, or when they try to collect the fare, that she's not there, that she doesn't make any noise, so they don't hear her getting out of the car. She just vanishes. If they're distracted and they look back at her while they're driving, that she has a knife and she kills them. But the other parts of this that I wanted to read, this is a very lengthy document. Yeah, these are just collected from people. This is from someone named Cecilia Mejia, and she's from the Distrito Central. And she says that she was a very tall woman. She was young. She had long hair. Just describing how she looked, that she had big lips, that she was dressed in white, and she wore heels, super high heels. And they say that she is a woman that comes out in the middle of the night in Tegucigalpa, that people can hear her taconazos, that they can hear her high heels in the streets. Another one says, and that she leaves a trace of perfume in her trail, that it just attracts men. And then this next one says, it's called The Tragedy of La Taconuda. La Taconuda leaves between midnight and 3 in the morning in the pedestrian streets. They say that she was a pretty girl. She had long hair, that she went to a party in her dress and her heels, that she was on her way back home, that a man assaulted her. She managed to escape him. She ran away in the streets wearing her heels, screaming for someone to help her, but that no one came out to help her, and that the man caught her and he ended up killing her, and that now her spirit remains on those streets. That's the other kind of popular version of this story of La Taconuda that I keep seeing, is that if it's not the taxi driver, it's that she was assaulted and ultimately murdered, and that her spirit, of course, would remain disgruntled. Again, we bring in this idea that we always talk about here of traumatic events and how they leave an imprint of energy. Obviously, that would do it, right? This last one on here that I was able to find in this PDF is from someone named Zelenia Eguiure from Tatumbla in Francisco Morazan. Okay, so this says that she used to live in a house, I think off of a sidewalk, and that every day at 12 at night that they would hear heels in the streets, and that they sounded like they were quick steps, if they were running, and that when they went out to see what it was, they didn't see anybody there. They see that only men can see La Taconuda, and that also when her steps are heard nearby, it's that she's far, but that if the steps are far away, it's because she's approaching you or she's nearby. So the next one that I have, or the last one that I have actually, this is a very different version of this story. This is actually a story of La Taconuda from Cuba. This has nothing to do with taxi drivers. It said that her spirit roams staircases in haunted or abandoned homes. This is something that was written on medium.com by a user called Chaotic Pear. This was actually posted in April of 2024, so very recently. It says, Echoes of the Night, exploring the legend of La Taconuda. And I'm not going to read the entire thing. It's not super long, but it says, step into the shadowy realms of Cuban folklore, where the legend of La Taconuda takes center stage. Described as a ghostly woman clad in black with a veiled face and long flowing hair, La Taconuda is said to appear to unsuspecting victims as they ascend or descend staircases. The only warning of her presence is the faint sound of her high-heeled shoes tapping against the steps, drawing ever closer with each passing moment. As children, you are warned never to look back as you climb the stairs, and most important of all, never dally as you go down. In some versions, she is said to have long nails that can act like claws, and some have seen her dressed in all black, except for her red heels. Okay, red bottoms. So again, this is another kind of a warning kind of a story. It's be careful on staircases. Don't look where you're walking. Don't be looking around. Don't be messing around on the stairs. Because if you are, La Taconuda that's going to get you. Which to me would make me want to run up or downstairs, right? Which I don't think that is the goal, but I would run if I heard that, or I would run so that I wouldn't encounter her. I don't know. Another piece of this says, when I was growing up, my best friend at school came one day retelling her encounter with the entity. She said that she had sneaked out from home to go to a party and had returned to her building in the early hours of the morning. She was tired and her feet hurt since she had stolen her older sister's heels that didn't quite fit. As she started to climb to her 4th floor apartment, we do not have many elevators in Cuba, particularly in the buildings that are less than 8 floors, she all of a sudden could hear heels going up the stairs loudly with her. Only problem, the sound was completely different from her heels. She said she started to worry when she heard a female voice start to hum. As a wave of fear rushed through her and she ready to sprint up the stairs, she heard a very calm but completely inhuman voice say, "Do not run." With her heart in her throat, she did her best to quickly but safely get to her floor. She swears that as she slowly slipped into her home, she heard those high heels begin the descent back down the building, and a haunting hum softly filled the space again. See, again, that would have just made me run. If I hear disembodied heels behind me, and then as I'm getting ready to run, they say, "Don't run," guess what I'm doing? I'm a runner. I'm a track star. I am not, I'm not going to listen to whatever that is. I'm going to get out of there. So this says that, I want to read the origin part of this. It says, while the origins of La Taconuda remain shrouded in mystery, some believe her legend is rooted in tales of lost love, betrayal, or tragic accidents that occurred on staircases. Others suggest she is the vengeful spirit of a woman wronged, condemned to roam the earth in search of justice. Personally, growing up, every version I ever heard mentioned she had an accident of some sort down some stairs and now haunted steep or dangerous stairs. This is really cool. I'm going to reach out to this person because they're actively posting, and this is really cool, and I would love to hear more about Cuban folklore. So Chaotic Pair, if you actually are listening, you feel free to reach out to me, but I'm going to reach out to you. So yeah, it was really, really cool to come across this one. It's again a completely different culture, but it's this idea of a woman's spirit wearing high heels. And let me tell you something. This is the slayest. This is the most slay. She is serving, giving. She's very demure. You see how she walks down the stairs slowly? She's demure. She's not like these other ghouls. She takes her time on the steps. She's very cutesy. I don't know if you've all seen that trend on TikTok, but I'm obsessed with it right now. But yeah, again, just really fun to make these connections to different cultures. I think this was the only other one that popped up in the first page of Google results about a high-heeled spirit, about La Taconuda. So if you have your own story about La Taconuda, obviously, always, always, always feel free to send in your versions. Welcome back, ghoul friends. Honestly, this story just inspired me to make a bunch of TikToks wearing my heels. I have a collection of heels. I don't know if anybody listening, I don't know if y'all know this. I don't know if you know this, you listener, but I have a collection of heels that I like to wear heels sometimes when I go out. When I say I'm ghoulie pop, I mean it. And I don't get a chance to wear them often anymore. I'm in my 30s. My feet hurt very easily now, but I will say I do marry the heels. I do not take them off. Again, I'm demure. I'm not like these other ghouls. I don't take my heels off and walk in the streets in the club with my shoes off. I commit to it, and then I don't feel my toes for a week. But I can just imagine the funny TikToks I can make about La Taconuda and walking in my heels, especially with that sound that's like da 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 da, and then the heels, the clicking to the back. I don't know. Anyway, I feel like my mind is slowly unraveling. The wrinkles in my brain are smoothing out. I don't know what's happening, but you know what? But you're here with me. And I appreciate you, and I'm so grateful. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Again, any and all updates on the show, on events that I will be at, you can follow me on social media. That's at Susto Podcast on every platform. Feel free to leave a rating review wherever you are listening. Listen, that's the easiest way to support the show. The easiest way to support Susto is by interacting on whichever platform you're listening, whether that's by following, subscribing, sharing, leaving a rating or review, commenting, sharing it with your own friends and family. And if you are feeling generous and you would like to support Susto by way of money, give me my money, then you can do so by visiting patreon.com/Susto Podcast. There are many different perks and benefits, and you can feel free to peruse through them, see which level is right for you. Any and all support means the underworld to me. And I would like to give a beautiful, special extra spooky shout out to this episode's patrons. You are Liza, Sadie, Rachel, Alejandra, Luther, April, Mario, Eva, D, Josette, Sam, Angela and Co, Mandy, Jules, Lori, Jeannie, Desiree, Anna, Ashes, Neresa, Rachel, Azucena, Rios, Marlene, Chata, Selene, Desiree, Cynthia, Serenay Flamenca, Belinda, Isaiah, Archer, and Ricardo. Thank you all so much from the bottom of the pit where my heart used to be. I deeply appreciate you. I will talk to you all in the next one. And until then, do not take your heels off in the club. Y no te asustes. Bye.